Chapter 1. The World of Spirit Masters.
Students, I want to remind you once again that there's only about a week left until the entrance exams for the various Spirit Master Academies. I hope you'll make good use of these few days to prepare thoroughly. Strive to achieve good results in the exams next week and get into the academy of your dreams. In a classroom, a bespectacled homeroom teacher spoke with a serious expression. Of course, only he knew that these were just words of encouragement. The number of people who could pass the exams was extremely small. In his class alone, it would be good if even a few could make it. The students sitting below had various expressions. Some looked worried, others were excited, and there was a mix of all kinds of reactions. All right, that's all I have to say. Now, class is dismissed. With that, the homeroom teacher announced the end of class and left the room. As soon as the teacher left, various voices erupted in the classroom. Damn, how did time pass so quickly? 3 years just flew by like that. Tell me about it. With our current abilities, we can forget about the top 4 Spirit Master Academies. Even the high-level ones are basically out of reach. Let's just think about how to get into any Spirit Master Academy at all. I'm not asking for much. Anyone will do. If we can't even get into a regular Spirit Master Academy, we're doomed. We'll have to be ordinary people for life. My goal is a high-level Spirit Master Academy. Although I can't reach the top 4, with my ability, getting into a high-level one shouldn't be a problem at all. So envious. Upon hearing this news, some were happy, while others were anxious. Those who were happy naturally felt their abilities were sufficient, while those who were worried believed their skills were inadequate and feared being eliminated at any time. Among this group, there was one person who remained seated quietly. Unlike the noisy surroundings, this person was silent, completely out of place with everything around him. Yiling looked at his noisy classmates. His feelings were quite complicated. However, as someone who had been reborn, he had a more mature perspective on many things and wouldn't make a fuss over such matters. But thinking about the public entrance exam that would take place in a week, Yiling couldn't help but sigh deeply. Yiling wasn't originally from this world, but was a transmigrator. Under unexpected circumstances, he arrived in this world a week ago. His soul directly took over this body, completely devouring the dying soul that was originally there. It took an entire day for Yiling to assimilate the memories carried by the weak soul in his body, and only then did he understand what kind of world this was. This world was not like the peaceful and tranquil one Yiling had lived in before. In this world, all kinds of monsters roamed freely and spread across the entire continent. Humans, who should have been at the top of the food chain on Earth, were completely different on this continent. Due to the powerful and numerous monsters, humans could only survive by relying on large, fortified cities. Of course, it wasn't just the cities they relied on. The reason humans could survive was also because of a special existence among them. This special existence was called Spirit Masters, currently the most revered profession among humans. The reason Spirit Masters could become the most important and even highest status profession in this world was because of the abilities they possessed. Spirit Masters, as the name suggests, were people who could control spirit pets. They could fight against the ferocious monsters in the wild by controlling powerful spirit pets, not only protecting human cities but also exploring areas outside the cities. They were essentially the guardians of humanity. This is why Spirit Masters were the highest status profession, without a doubt. After becoming a Spirit Master, the power and treatment one enjoyed naturally far exceeded those of ordinary people. For young people in this world, the greatest dream was to become a powerful Spirit Master. Of course, Yiling, who had successfully transmigrated to this world and absorbed the original owner's memories, was no exception. After clearly understanding what kind of world this was, Yiling realized it was a world where the strong preyed on the weak and strength was respected. Only when you possessed great power did you have the opportunity and qualifications to enjoy more power and wealth. It wasn't that you couldn't survive in this world if you couldn't become a Spirit Master. That wasn't the case. Of course, you could survive. But for ordinary people, this world was unfriendly. They could only live within the cities. Once they left the city, ordinary people without spirit pets to help them fight could easily be killed by monsters. Therefore, for most ordinary people, they could only stay in cities for their entire lives. Each large city protected these ordinary humans, but it was also their shackle, preventing them from leaving. Yiling was not only his name in his previous life, but also the name of his current body. The two happened to have the same name. Whether it was due to some special reason or not, even their appearances were very similar. At least Yiling didn't feel any dissonance looking at his current self. Chapter 2. System Activation. After crossing over to this world, Yiling knew that this was a world where strength speaks. He was also prepared to make his mark. In the Federation, students attending high schools in various cities could be assigned an egg from a magical creature when they reach the age of 18. By making a contract with this magical egg, one could obtain a spirit pet. This was also the only way for ordinary students to get their first spirit pet. Of course, this was limited to ordinary students. For those from powerful and influential families, obtaining magical eggs was incredibly easy. Unfortunately, Yiling was not a member of any great family. He was merely a student sponsored by the Federation. Therefore, Yiling naturally had no way to obtain rarer magical eggs. When his predecessor obtained the first magical egg, he was initially full of hope. But when a predecessor used his blood to form a contract with a magical egg, a flash of black light appeared. Then, enveloped in the black light, the magical egg gradually transformed into a terrifying monster. An ugly, horrifying zombie, stiff all over, that couldn't even walk properly, and could only move by hopping. When he saw that his spirit pet was a zombie, the predecessor's hopeful mood instantly turned to despair. What kind of spirit pet you could get from the magical eggs provided by the school was entirely up to your luck. There was no information written on the magical eggs about the spirit pets inside. Therefore, there is no way to take shortcuts. But contracting a zombie as a spirit pet, one had to admire the predecessor's bad luck. Zombies were a rather famous type of useless spirit pet in this world. Although their defense was strong among their peers, their movement speed was slow. At the same time, there was an important problem. Zombies could not evolve. This meant that zombies would forever remain in this form, unable to improve their combat power through evolution. Their growth potential was fixed, and they would always be useless. Such a spirit pet was only slightly better than ordinary pets kept in people's homes. Pets, at least, had the advantage of being cute and cheering up their owners. But zombies didn't have this quality. Apart from scaring people, they couldn't even outrun a dog. What would one expect from such a spirit pet? The predecessor was completely despondent after receiving the zombie's spirit pet. He believed himself to be a useless person incapable of becoming a spirit master. Unable to become a spirit master meant he could only be an ordinary person. It was precisely because of this that the predecessor had been living in a daze every day since then. Believing he had no hope left, he could only become an ordinary person and gave up on himself. That was why Yiling could take over so easily and successfully. It was because the predecessor no longer even had the desire to live that he was so easily consumed by Yiling. If it had been a soul with a strong will to survive, it would have been unknown who would consume whom. However, fortunately, the zombie spirit pet had a strong defense. Even though its combat power was only at the First Order Level 1, its defense power could rival that of the First Order Level 2, or possibly even Level 3. But relying solely on defense power, there was no way to get admitted to a Spirit Master Academy. Even as a reincarnator, Yiling racked his brains but couldn't change anything. Sigh. Heaving a deep sigh, Yiling raised his head to look out the window, his eyes full of desolation. He never thought that in his second life, in such a colorful and exciting world, he could only be an ordinary person. Probably no one would be content with that. When others transmigrate, they either have some cheating ability or are incredibly powerful, able to destroy heaven and earth. How did I end up in such a sorry state? Thinking about how he was a transmigrator, Yiling felt he was bringing shame to the whole army of transmigrators. Yiling, don't think too much about it. If you can't get in, then you can't get in. In my opinion, even if you can't get in, you can still be an ordinary office worker. You won't have to go out adventuring. That's not bad. At this moment, a voice came from behind, and a thick, large hand rested on Yiling's shoulder. Without thinking, Yiling already knew who it was. Shenji was Yiling's current deskmate and could be considered Yiling's only good friend, or rather, good brother in school. Shenji was also from an ordinary family, but his luck was much better than Yiling's. He had obtained a wind wolf, a spirit pet of decent quality that could evolve. Given Shenji's conditions, with a bit of effort, he had no problem getting into a mid-tier Spirit Master Academy. Of course, trying to get into a higher-tier one would be quite difficult for him as well. As for Yiling, he was now frozen. He showed no reaction at all. Yi Ling. Receiving no response, Chen Ji called out again, somewhat puzzled. However, Yi Ling was completely immersed in his thoughts at that moment. As Chen Ji spoke, a mechanical voice devoid of any emotion sounded in the depths of his mind. Ding. Detecting that the host's first spirit pet has reached 100% growth, meeting the activation conditions for the Spirit Master system. Please wait. 1%, 7%, 18%, 35%, 55%, 80%, 100% Spirit Master system activation is successful. For Yi Ling, this voice was simply heavenly music, even though it showed no emotion. Because he, who had almost given up hope, finally believed, he too had a system. That was his cheating ability. Chapter 3. There's always someone asking for trouble. It was this emotionless, mechanical voice that made Yi Ling lose his thought for a while. Suddenly coming back to his senses, Yi Ling's face couldn't suppress his wild joy. Yi Ling. Chen Ji, who had been standing beside him, shook Yi Ling vigorously. Snapping back to reality, Yi Ling was startled and quickly concealed his joy. He then turned to look at Chen Ji and asked confusedly, Chen Ji, what did you just say? Sorry, I was a bit lost in thought earlier. Hearing this, Chen Ji showed an exasperated expression. So Yi Ling had not heard a word of what he had just said. I said, never mind, it's nothing. Take advantage of these few days to work hard. See if you can get into a low-level Spirit Master Academy. As he spoke, Chen Ji sighed deeply. He also knew that the spirit pet Yi Ling had obtained was a zombie, extremely slow to move and unable to evolve. Earlier, when Yi Ling was lost in thought, Chen Ji assumed this fact had dealt him a huge blow, and he hadn't yet recovered, which was why he kept zoning out. Keep up the effort, Chen Ji encouraged, patting Yi Ling's shoulder forcefully again. Hearing this, Yi Ling nodded without saying much. Right now, he is more concerned about his system. However, being in such a public place and not knowing if opening the system would cause strange phenomena, Yi Ling decided it was better to wait until he got home. Don't worry, my goal isn't just a low-level Spirit Master Academy. Now that he had the system, even though Yi Ling didn't know exactly what it could do, a low-level Spirit Master Academy couldn't possibly satisfy him. Chen Ji was slightly taken aback but didn't pay much attention to it, considering Yi Ling had enough confidence, which was a good thing. Of course, he wouldn't take Yi Ling's words too seriously. With that zombie spirit pet in Yi Ling's possession, even getting into a low-level Spirit Master Academy was a huge problem. Did you guys hear what Yi Ling just said? His goal isn't a low-level Spirit Master Academy? At this moment, an extremely arrogant laugh came from nearby. This laughter and the slightly harsh words made both Yi Ling and Chen Ji frown. Looking over, they saw a well-dressed young man whose appearance alone suggested that his family must have some power, with an arrogant expression on his face. Yi Ling was quite familiar with this person. His name was Lu Wu, and he came from a good family background. The Lu family was a second-tier family in Radiant City, with the strongest member of their family, the clan leader, being a fifth-order spirit master. Although a fifth-order spirit master might not sound very impressive, it was not weak in this Radiant City. After all, Radiant City wasn't a big city, barely qualifying as a medium-sized city. Even the strongest person in Radiant City, the City Lord, was only a seventh-order spirit master, the most powerful combat force in the entire city. Radiant City had a total of 3 first-tier families and 5 second-tier families, with many more families below the second tier. To be considered a first-tier family, the strongest power within the family had to be at least 6th order, while for second-tier families, it was 5th order. Therefore, the Lu family's influence in Radiant City was not weak. This was also why Lu could be so arrogant and domineering in class. As long as he didn't provoke the children of those few first-tier families, he could do whatever he wanted among the students. And in this class, there were no children from first-tier families, so Lu could say whatever he wanted without anyone stopping him. Coming from the Lu family, Lu Wu's first spirit pet naturally wasn't provided by the school, but by his family. This was the advantage of coming from a prominent family. Not only did they have a superior background, but they could also obtain more powerful spirit pets. The starting line was already far ahead of ordinary people. It was precisely because of this that Lu Wu was usually very arrogant and looked down on the commoners in the class. Yi Ling was no exception, and he had often been mocked and ridiculed by him. Moreover, although Yi Ling was a commoner, he was somewhat handsome and had a certain quality about him, which made Lu Wu, who considered himself very excellent, quite dislike him. Especially after Yiling obtained the zombie spirit pet, Lu Wu became even more so, always finding reasons to mock Yiling. Yiling, do you think you can get into a Spirit Master Academy with your useless zombie? Don't even think about it. I bet you can't even get into a low-level Spirit Master Academy, can you? Ha ha. Lu Wu showed great disdain for Yiling's earlier words, even mocking him to his face. In Lu Wu's view, Yiling was just an ordinary commoner without any special abilities. Getting a spirit pet that turned out to be a useless zombie meant that Yiling would be an ordinary person at best in the future. This kind of person Lu Wu felt he could bully however he wanted, and in front of Yiling, Lu Wu always had a sense of superiority. You. Before Yiling himself could say anything, Chen Ji beside him couldn't sit still and was about to step forward. Just as he was about to step out, Yiling quickly grabbed his arm to stop him. Chen Ji, feeling indignant, was stopped by Yiling and had to halt. He turned around and looked at Yiling with confusion, not understanding why Yiling would stop him when he wanted to help. Chapter 4. The Evolvable Zombie. Seeing Chen Ji's slightly angry expression, Yiling shook his head slightly, hinting at him not to act rashly. Although Chen Ji's spirit pet Windwolf had decent growth potential, Chen Ji himself wasn't from any prominent family and was just slightly better off than Yiling. At this moment, directly confronting Lu Wu, who had the Lu family's backing, was overestimating oneself. Though Yiling felt very uncomfortable about Lu Wu's mockery, having lived a second life, his mentality had long surpassed the age of reacting impulsively to every provocation. If he angered Lu Wu now, it might involve the Lu family behind him. Although Yiling had successfully activated the system, it didn't mean the system could help him become invincible immediately. Even if the system could make him stronger, Yiling believed it would still take time. A gentleman's revenge can wait 10 years. There was no need to act impulsively over a moment's verbal exchange. Moreover, Yiling believed that, with the system, he wouldn't need 10 years for revenge. As long as he successfully entered the top-tier Spirit Master Academy in the recruitment test a week later, Yiling believed that by then, even if he defeated Lu Wu, the Lu family wouldn't dare to do anything to him. But before that, Yiling had no intention of directly confronting Lu Wu. Seeing Yiling's look, Chen Ji also instantly calmed down and nodded slightly. Ignoring Lu Wu's provocation, Yiling and Chen Ji packed up their things and walked straight out of the classroom. Yiling seemed completely unaffected by Lu Wu's very mocking words earlier. Lu Wu watched Yiling and Chen Ji leave without acknowledging him, his face slightly gloomy. But this was a school, and even he couldn't cause any trouble here. After all, the principal of this school is the City Lord of Radiant City. Even the clan leaders of these first and second-tier families had to be respectful when meeting the City Lord. And Lu Wu, merely the son of the Lu family's clan leader, didn't dare to offend the City Lord lightly. So while watching Yiling's back, Lu Wu looked gloomy, but didn't do anything dangerous. Trash will always be trash. Even when mocked to your face, you don't dare make a peep. Pa. As he spoke, Lu Wu spat fiercely to the side. And for someone like Lu Wu, there was naturally no shortage of bootlickers around him. Two people stood on either side of Lu Wu, nodding and smiling sycophantically. Brother Wu is mighty. That Yiling is just trash. He doesn't even dare to make a sound. That's right. You should know our brother Wu is going to test for advanced, even top-tier Spirit Master Academies. The two had long been accustomed to being bootlickers, knowing what to say and when to please Lu Wu. Hearing the praise from his two lackeys, Lu Wu raised his head arrogantly again. His face was full of pride, looking as if he were the third most important being after heaven and earth. Yiling, who had left the classroom, immediately parted ways with Chen Ji and hurried back to his own home without stopping. Soon he arrived home, changed into his slippers, and came to the small living room, sitting down eagerly. System, come out quickly. As soon as he sat down, Yiling hurriedly called out softly twice. And in Yiling's mind, that voice that gave Yiling a dreamlike feeling sounded again. Although mechanical and without any emotion to Yiling, this was heavenly music. Ding. The Spirit Pet system is officially activated. This system can help the host clearly understand various aspects of Spirit Pet's information, and at the same time, can increase the experience gained by Spirit Pets, allowing them to level up quickly. The system rambled on and on. But Yiling listened attentively, not daring to miss even the slightest bit. After all, this was related to his future. How could he not take it seriously? In the classroom, Yiling had only successfully activated the system but hadn't opened it, and this was the first time opening it. As this mechanical voice fell silent, suddenly a panel that only he could see popped up in front of Yiling. Host, Yiling. Level, First Order, Level 2. Spirit Power, 200/200. Spirit Techniques. Spirit Chain, Level 1, consumes 100 Spirit Power. Spirit Shield, Level 1, consumes 100 Spirit Power. Spirit Vision, Level 1, consumes 10 Spirit Power per second. Spirit Pet, Black-Eyed Zombie. Available free points 0. Very concise. At a glance, one could see exactly what abilities Yiling currently possessed. He reached out and tapped on the Spirit Pet section of the panel in front of him. Then the panel flipped, and the Spirit Pet section expanded. Name, Black-Eyed Zombie. Type, Undead type. Level, First Order, Level 2, 0% experience. Growth potential, Common. Growth rate, 100%. Talent, Physical damage reduction, low grade. Skills, none. Evolution path, Unique evolution path. Next stage, White-Eyed Zombie, Uncommon. Gray-Eyed Zombie, Rare. Yellow-Eyed Zombie, Extraordinary. Blue-Eyed Zombie, Epic. Green-Eyed Zombie, Legendary. Red-Eyed Zombie King, Mythical. When Yiling saw the evolution path, he suddenly widened his eyes. He hurriedly rubbed his eyes hard, thinking he must have seen something wrong. But when he looked closely again, the evolution path was still clearly written, with the next stage being White-Eyed Zombie. This meant that the zombie spirit pet in Yiling's possession was not unable to evolve, nor was it a useless spirit pet. Rather, the people of this world simply didn't know how to make it evolve. Chapter 5. The First Evolution. Furthermore, according to the information displayed on the system, as his zombie pet evolves, its growth potential can continue to increase. It's important to know that for all spirit pets, their growth potential determines their growth limit. In this world of spirit cultivation, the growth potential of spirit pets is divided into 8 levels: mediocre, common, uncommon, rare, extraordinary, epic, legendary, and mythical. Although the highest level of growth potential is currently mythical, considering the current situation of the entire Federation, the highest recorded growth potential is only at the legendary level. The mythical level is merely speculation among most people in the Federation. Those who believe in this the most are the big shots who own legendary level spirit pets. They all believe that there are higher level spirit pets, but so far, no one has been able to evolve to that stage. Spirit pets with different growth potentials have their upper limits for growth. Mediocre potential can only be raised to the 4th order level 10 at most, common potential to the 5th order level 10, and so on. Only epic potential spirit pets have a chance to reach the 9th order level 10, not to mention the higher stage of legendary spirit pets. At the same level, spirit pets with higher growth potential will have more advantages. Higher growth potential means they may master more talents and skills, naturally giving them an edge. Yiling's current Black-Eyed Zombie is at the 2nd stage of growth potential, just slightly better than mediocre. Of course, now that he sees hope, he naturally won't consider his Black-Eyed Zombie to be mediocre. It's worth noting that the final evolution stage of the Black-Eyed Zombie, the Red-Eyed Zombie King, has mythical level growth potential. Currently, on the entire continent, even legendary level spirit pets are extremely rare, with each one at the top of the pyramid. One can imagine how terrifying a Black-Eyed Zombie that can evolve into a mythical level Red-Eyed Zombie King would be, albeit in the future. With the spirit cultivation system, becoming a top-tier spirit master at the academy is completely within reach. Looking at the system panel in a daze, Yiling felt a surge of wild joy. If resources were sufficient, Yiling could even become the first person on the continent to own a mythical pet. If this news got out, without a doubt, no one would believe it. They might even think he was crazy. Until now, no one has figured out how to evolve to the mythical level. Of course, this is assuming resources are sufficient. Each evolution of a spirit pet requires consuming certain resources to have a chance of completing the evolution. The further along, the more precious and rare various resources and materials become. These resources mainly come from monsters in various parts of the continent. There are only 2 ways to obtain these resources. One is to hunt the corresponding monsters yourself, and the other is to purchase them from the market. These are the 2 main channels for obtaining resources. Yiling, all alone, only had the opportunity to become a student with the help of the Federation. He had no extra money to buy resources or the like. This means that if Yiling wants to evolve his black-eyed zombie, he must leave the safety of Radiant City and go to the wilderness to hunt monsters. Having made up his mind, Yiling prepared to first check what materials were needed for evolution so he could figure out how to obtain them as soon as possible. But just then, as Yiling was checking the evolution materials for the black-eyed zombie, he suddenly discovered that the evolution button on the system panel was no longer gray, but lit up. This situation naturally made him very confused. Calming himself, Yiling carefully examined the system panel and finally found the system prompt. System opens welfare can help the host's spirit pet evolve for the first time without charging any resources, and additionally grants the host 2 usable free points. Seeing this, Yiling was instantly overjoyed. Indeed, systems all have newbie benefits. The ancients did not deceive me. There was nothing to hesitate about. Of course, he had to evolve. Before evolving, he had to summon the zombie's spirit pet. Yiling closed his eyes and focused his thoughts. A faint light appeared in front of him, and as the light gradually dissipated, a humanoid zombie about his height appeared out of thin air. Although the zombie's exact features couldn't be seen clearly, and its face was even grotesque from the body shape, one could tell it was a female zombie. After all, those 2 lumps of flesh on her chest were not fake. They had just become rock hard. Her pair of pitch-black eyes gave people a chilling feeling. The female zombie stood motionless, not moving an inch without Yiling's command. It was unclear whether she truly had no consciousness and was desperate to act, or if it was due to sluggish thinking. Looking back at the system panel, Yiling unhesitatingly chose to evolve. Evolve! A white light quickly enveloped the female zombie, making it impossible to see the changes inside. The evolution process was fast, taking only a minute before the white light rapidly receded. The female zombie that was inside the white light reappeared before Yiling's eyes. When Yiling saw his zombie spirit pet again, his eyes immediately lit up. Because now the zombie spirit pet has already changed. Most importantly, the change in appearance was dramatic. Chapter 6. White-Eyed Zombie. Although Yiling's zombie spirit pet was female, its appearance as a black-eyed zombie was still as frightening as something out of a horror movie. If an ordinary person saw such a black-eyed zombie, they might immediately mistake it for a monster. Even Yiling, the master of this zombie spirit pet, found it somewhat creepy when looking at his pet. Therefore, Yiling rarely called her out under normal circumstances. Imagine sleeping late at night with a terrifying-looking zombie ghost pet standing next to you. It would be scary, no matter how you think about it. Especially if you got up in the middle of the night, someone with a weak heart might be frightened to death. The problem was that this zombie didn't need to sleep and would just stare at you all the time. This would probably make it impossible for anyone to sleep. Of course, non-humans might be an exception. But now things were different. The black-eyed zombie, having completed its first evolution, had undergone a dramatic change in appearance. It should no longer be called a black-eyed zombie, but a white-eyed zombie. Pure white eyes with only a tiny black dot in the center. If wearing sunglasses, you wouldn't be able to tell at all. The zombie body, which originally looked a bit creepy, now looked like a normal person. Not only that, but the female zombie who had evolved into a white-eyed zombie now had a delicate face. Although her complexion was deathly pale, it gave off a sense of sickly beauty. If not observed, she could be mistaken for a beautiful human woman if taken out in public. Of course, due to still being a zombie, she emanated a cold aura. Yiling reached out and gently touched the zombie woman's delicate face. Compared to when she was a black-eyed zombie, it was slightly softer. But it was still quite hard, ice-cold without any warmth. Such a beautiful female zombie spirit pet. I wonder how strong she is. She won't still be useless, will she? Looking good had no practical use. For Yiling right now, he needed to improve his strength quickly. And the fastest way to do that was naturally to find a way to hunt monsters. Hunting monsters was the only way to quickly gain experience and raise the level of his spirit pet. As the level of the spirit pet increased, Yiling, as the spirit master, could synchronize with the level of his highest level spirit pet and naturally gain an increase in strength. Therefore, in this world, almost all spirit masters built their strength through mini battles. Opening the system panel again, the information about his spirit pet had changed. Name: White-Eyed Zombie. Type: Undead. Level: First Order Level 2, 0% experience. Growth potential: Uncommon. Growth: 0%. Talent: Physical damage reduction, low level. Talent points available. Skill, bloodthirst, skill points available. This evolution increases the zombie's spirit pet strength, with its growth rate upper limit breaking through to uncommon. Not only that, but it also gained a skill. Bloodthirst. When the owner fights and deals damage to enemy targets, they can heal their injuries and increase their attack power. Duration, 3 minutes, cooldown 5 minutes. Although there was a cooldown time, this skill was still powerful, able to heal injuries and provide more sustained combat ability. Combined with the inherent physical damage reduction that could reduce a portion of physical damage, Yeeling could already see the future direction of this spirit pet. Vampiric Tank DPS build. It was already obvious vampiric ability plus damage reduction, with considerable damage output. Perfect vampiric tank DPS build. At the same time, Yeeling noticed the note about available talent points for talents. He also noticed that skills could be upgraded. System, what do I need to consume to add talent points and skill points? If you don't know, you should ask. Naturally, Yeeling had to inquire about this thoroughly. More talents and skills represented a stronger spirit pet. For ordinary spirit pets, each time they complete an evolution, they could gain a talent or a skill. Talents could be considered passive skills. The higher the growth potential, the more skills or talents they could obtain. Therefore, at the same level, spirit pets with higher growth potential often had more skills or talents, giving them an advantage. Of course, this was just one way to measure a spirit pet's strength, and it didn't mean that having more talents or skills made them stronger. To add points to available talents and skills, you only need to consume available free points. Currently, the host has 2 available points. Free points can not only be used to add points to the pet's talents and skills, but also to upgrade the spirit techniques mastered by the host. The system's cold voice rang out, very concise and clear, without any unnecessary elaboration. Yeeling nodded slightly, now understanding what the free points given by the system earlier were for. Spirit masters possess spiritual techniques that had to be learned. Current schools, they only taught 3 spirit techniques: Spirit Chain, Spirit Shield, and Spirit Vision. Yeeling had already reached level 1 in all 3 of these techniques. It was not easy for a spirit master to improve his spirit techniques, and he had to spend a lot of time practicing. The higher the level, of course, the more powerful the technique. But it also meant more consumption. Chapter 7. Super Speed Regeneration, Xue-You. Given Yeeling's current situation, with 200 points of spiritual energy, apart from the continuous consumption of Spirit Vision, he could use his other 2 spiritual techniques at most twice. After 2 uses, his spiritual energy would be depleted, unable to use any spiritual techniques, and he would have to wait for it to slowly recover. Moreover, as the level increases, the spiritual techniques require more energy to use. At present, there's no need to upgrade the spiritual techniques Yeeling has mastered, because after upgrading, they might become too costly to use, which isn't necessary. Therefore, Yeeling decided to use the 2 free points he currently had to upgrade the white-eyed zombie. He opened the talents and skills that could be upgraded. Upgradable talents. Magic damage reduction. Low level slightly reduces magic type damage. Super speed regeneration, as long as not instantly destroyed, can repair even the most severe injuries at an extremely fast speed, consuming stamina. Upgradable skill. Blood frenzy. Gradually consumes your blood to increase strength and speed, automatically deactivated when blood level drops to a certain point. Seeing these 3 options, Yeeling wanted them all. But he only had 2 free points, so he could only choose 2. A zombie should look like a zombie. How can it not have super speed regeneration? This is a must-have. After pondering for a while, Yeeling unhesitatingly chose to upgrade to super speed regeneration first. As long as the spirit pet doesn't die, all parts can regenerate infinitely, which is simply unbeatable. It's worth noting that in the Federation, many spirit masters have spirit pets with various injuries. Most of these are due to irreparable damage sustained in battle. Spirit pets are also living creatures. They can be injured and die. Super speed regeneration, as a life-saving ability, must be chosen. For the second upgrade, Yeeling hesitated briefly before deciding to upgrade the Blood Frenzy skill. The reason for choosing Blood Frenzy was to complement the Bloodthirst skill. Using Blood Frenzy gradually reduces one's blood level while increasing strength and speed, automatically deactivating when reaching a certain threshold. At this point, the blood level would be in an unhealthy state, so the Bloodthirst skill can be used to regain blood by attacking enemies. Once the blood level is fully restored, Blood Frenzy can be used again. This cycle can be repeated, making Yiling's female zombie quite terrifying. Under Blood Frenzy, with greatly enhanced strength and speed, the female zombie's combat power is far beyond what it is now. Compared to when she was a black-eyed zombie, the current female zombie's strength is powerful. Similarly, the female zombie, whose body now has some flexibility, no longer needs to hop around like before. There's not much difference from an ordinary person now. Looking at the female zombie with tattered clothes but a delicate face, Yiling muttered to himself. Always calling her zombie, feels a bit weird. Why don't I give you a name? Spirit pets have a certain level of intelligence and are not mere puppets. While Yiling was talking to himself, the female zombie tilted her head, looking at him curiously, blinking her eyes from time to time. That look was like an innocent child who didn't understand anything. Not knowing if she understood or not, Yiling just assumed she agreed. Zombie blood? Since it's like this, how about I call you Xue-You? What do you think? Hearing this, the female zombie just blinked her eyes. She looked like an innocent child who didn't understand anything. All right, I guess I asked for nothing. Then it's decided from now on, you will be called Xue-You. And so the name of Yiling's first spirit pet was casually decided. At the same time, the profile of Yiling's spirit pet also changed. Name, Xue-You, white-eyed zombie. Type, undead. Level, first order level 2. Experience 0%. Growth potential, uncommon. Growth rate, 0%. Talents, physical damage reduction. Low level, super speed regeneration. Skills, bloodthirst, blood frenzy. Compared to before, Xue-Yu's current profile can be said to be truly luxurious. A total of 4 talents and skills combined. Generally, spirit pets at the uncommon stage have at most 3 talents or skills, with most having only 2. But Xue-Yu already has 4, and this is just the beginning. Therefore, although her growth potential is uncommon, Xue-Yu's strength is far greater than spirit pets and magical beasts with the same growth potential. To continue evolving Xue-Yu, I must hunt more magical beasts. So now the zombie's hunting time is about to begin. Yiling's eyes were filled with undisguisable joy. He could already see loads of experience points coming his way. However, before that, Xue-Yu's current tattered clothes looked quite inappropriate. Yiling temporarily found one of his clothes and changed Xue-Yu into it. Chapter 8. Leaving the city. The process, however, was indeed somewhat complicated. Although Xue-Yu was just a spirit pet, it was a humanoid one. Even though its body was cold and stiff, it couldn't change the fact that Xue-Yu's body was female. Its physical structure was no different from that of an ordinary human female. When removing Xue-Yu's clothes, Yiling swore he had never seen such pale skin before. After a difficult struggle, Yiling finally managed to dress Xue-Yu. Clothed in men's attire, Xue-Yu gave off an air of gallantry. However, its cold gaze was enough to dispel any other thoughts one might have. After returning Xue-Yu to the spirit pet mark on his forehead, Yiling quickly gathered the things he needed to bring and set off. Like in his previous life, the Federation was still technologically advanced, though somewhat different from before. There were still vehicles like cars outside, but they weren't powered by gasoline or electricity. They ran on spiritual energy. Spiritual energy was the driving force behind all devices. Cars were limited to use within the city. Outside the city was the domain of monsters, and driving a car out there will be tantamount to suicide. The Federation's technology was quite developed, with not only cars but also airships. Traveling to other cities on foot was simply impossible. In the wilderness, the chances of encountering monsters were very high. Even powerful spirit masters couldn't guarantee safe passage to another city on foot. To travel to other cities, airships were the most important means of transportation. Of course, this didn't mean there were no monsters in the sky, but compared to the ground, aerial monsters were far fewer. Combined with the fact that airships were much faster than cars, they naturally became the primary means of transport. To ensure the safe passage of airships between cities, the Federation assigned powerful spirit masters to oversee them. Therefore, unless encountering a large group of flying monsters or a powerful individual flying monster, the safety of airships was generally not an issue. Arriving at the roadside, Yiling hailed a car. Although he relied on the Federation's assistance for his education, The previous Yiling had also done some part-time work, so he had some savings. In the Federation, the only currency equivalent to money in his previous life was credit points. Within the city, all transactions, regardless of what was being bought, required credit points. Credit points were the true hard currency throughout the entire Federation. "Driver, please take me to the South Gate," Yiling said, stating his destination as he sat in the passenger seat. Upon hearing the request to go to the South Gate, the middle-aged driver with glasses looked at the young Yiling with slight surprise. From Yiling's clothes, the driver had already guessed he was a student. However, it was very unusual for a student to go to the South Gate. The entire Radiant City was divided into 4 gates: east, south, west, and north. Each gate was heavily guarded to prevent monster invasions. Over the years, Radiant City had withstood wave after wave of monster attacks, demonstrating its military prowess. In the direction of the South Gate, monsters roamed not far outside, and ordinary people wouldn't dare to venture out easily. Of course, if one wanted to leave, it was simple. They just needed to provide their identity card. City residents were free, and if they wanted to leave the city, no one would stop them. But how many ordinary people would willingly go out? It was practically suicide. Thus, this middle-aged driver was certain that Yiling must be a student spirit master in training. Many students would leave the city for training, seeking out monsters. The car started moving. The middle-aged driver was experienced, driving casually yet quickly. "Young man, you look like a student from our Radiant High School. What made you suddenly decide to go outside the city alone?" the middle-aged driver asked with interest as he drove. After all, Yiling was just a student. For a student to venture outside the city alone was indeed puzzling. Usually, students would choose to go out in groups for better safety. At least, this was the first time he had seen a student going alone. Yiling, who had been propping his head up with his right hand and looking out the window, casually replied to the driver's query. "Going out naturally is to hunt monsters." With that, Yiling fell silent again. Seeing that Yiling was uninterested in conversation and somewhat cold, the middle-aged driver shrugged slightly. He was just curious about Yiling going out alone, not trying to pry. Since the other party was uninterested in talking, it would be awkward to continue. Thus, the car fell silent, with only the sound of the vehicle in motion. Before long, Yiling finally arrived at the South Gate. After paying the credit points, Yiling got out of the car. In front of him was a very tall city wall. Just looking up at it, one could feel its imposing presence. It was because of such tall city walls that they had been able to repel monster attacks time and time again. On the city wall, guards were posted every few steps, all members of the Federation's military. Chapter 9. Bone Burial Mound. Having shown his identity card, the guard did not obstruct him at all, and it went very smoothly. The guards had seen too many students like Yiling leaving the city. However, almost all of them were accompanied by others. Yiling was considered an exception, actually traveling alone. Yiling finally stepped out of Radiant City. Leaving the South Gate meant that he had officially entered the territory of magical beasts. In this wilderness, survival could only depend on oneself, with no hope of others coming to rescue. Around the city, those closer to the city are all relatively low-level magical beasts. Higher-level magical beasts generally resided in places farther away from the city. There used to be high-level magical beasts in areas very close to the city, but they had all been exterminated. Unfortunately, Yiling currently did not have a mount-type spirit pet, so he could only travel on foot. However, for his safety, Yiling summoned Xue-You immediately after leaving the South Gate. In the wild, one can never be too careful. Because if you are not careful, you may fall into the abyss and never return. Caution ensures longevity, so Xue-You had to stay by Yiling's side. Before leaving, Yiling had prepared some things, including a map of the area surrounding Radiant City. It showed the distribution of monsters, and near the South Gate, there were several monster gathering spots. This time, Yiling's target was one of these spots. Naturally, one should pick the softest persimmon to squeeze, so for his safety, Yiling chose a place called Bone Burial Mound. As the name suggests, this place was where undead skeleton monsters lived. The reason for choosing this place was also to collect materials for Xue-Yu's next evolution. Each of Xue-Yu's evolutions required the consumption of certain materials. The first evolution was provided by the system for free. But for the subsequent evolutions, Yiling had to slowly gather the materials himself. 4 types of materials were needed for Xue-You to evolve to the next stage of gray-eyed zombie. Of course, the reason there were only 4 types was that the growth power was not high at present. Later on, the required evolution materials would become more and more numerous. The 4 materials are flawless bones, dark heart, low-grade dark crystals, 10, and dark blood essence, 10. At Bone Burial Mound, there is a chance to obtain 2 of these materials, flawless bone and low-grade dark crystals. After walking for about half an hour, passing through patches of forest, Xue-You finally arrived at his destination, Bone Burial Mound. Earlier, it was all forest, looking lush green and full of vitality. But before his eyes now, it was desolate, even lifeless. The location of Bone Burial Mound was utterly devoid of any sign of life. Even the trees had no green leaves on them, all just withered branches and decayed leaves. Perhaps due to the abundance of bones at Bone Burial Mound, even the rocks on the ground appeared white. Around Bone Burial Mound, a large amount of dead energy could be seen from afar. If ordinary people saw Bone Burial Mound, they would probably turn around and run without hesitation. Xue-You had been expressionlessly following Xue-You, but upon seeing Bone Burial Mound, confusion showed in its eyes. Xue-You did not know what Bone Burial Mound was. Similarly, with its current low intelligence, Xue-You wasn't very interested in understanding Bone Burial Mound. Xue-You, let's go, we've reached our destination. Walking directly towards Bone Burial Mound, Xue-You didn't want to waste any more time here. Bone Burial Mound was home to a large number of skeletons, all undead monsters. Although most low-level skeletons were individually weaker than any other monsters, with bodies of just white bones that looked like a single kick could break their ribs, they made up for it with their large numbers and extremely tenacious vitality. Even if their heads were cut off, as long as the soul fire inside them wasn't destroyed, they weren't killed. On these patches of white stones, piles of white bones could be seen from time to time. Xue-Yu's expression remained unchanged. They were just piles of bones, nothing extraordinary. The outermost area of Bone Burial Mound was populated by skeleton soldiers, with strength at most around level 3 of the First Order. Among monsters, these were just cannon fodder, not considered powerful monsters. As long as Xue-You was a bit careful, there shouldn't be much danger. Gradually moving inward, Xue-You suddenly stopped. It was because he heard some sound coming from the front. Clack, clack, clack. Looking around, Xue-You found a relatively hidden spot on higher ground and took Xue-You there to hide. Standing on the high ground, looking down, Xue-You saw several skeletons with pale bone frames. These skeletons were the lowest level monsters of Bone Burial Mound. Upon seeing these monsters, a smile appeared on Xue-Yu's face. He could already see experience points coming his way. Xue-You, go for it. With your current strength, dealing with these few skeletons shouldn't be difficult. Xue-You gave his first order to Xue-You. Xue-You nodded slightly next to Xue-You. Then Xue-You leaped down from the high ground, jumping directly toward those few skeleton soldiers below. Xue-You, who had already evolved, had much more wisdom in her mind. Perhaps Xue-Yu's wisdom would even be able to speak if she was given some time to evolve to the next stage. Chapter 10. System Tasks. Experience Acquisition. Ding. Task issued. First battle. Kill 20 skeleton soldiers. Completing the task will grant 50% of the current spirit pet's experience value progress. Just as Xue-You had leaped down, that mechanical monotonous voice suddenly rang out in Xue-Yu's mind. There are even tasks. Xue-You was slightly surprised. He thought the system would only allow his spirit pet to gain more skills and talents and evolve faster. He didn't expect there to be system tasks as well. However, this reward was incredibly generous, directly offering experience value percentage progress. It meant that by killing 20 skeleton soldiers, besides the experience gained naturally, he could obtain an additional 50% experience progress. It meant that his leveling speed would be fast. While others were still struggling to run, he had already boarded a rocket. Thinking of this, Xue-You looked at the group of skeleton soldiers below with gleaming eyes. Xue-You, who had just jumped down, delivered a flying kick to the pale, gleaming skull of a skeleton soldier before landing. Crack! The already fragile bones instantly snapped. Of course, it wasn't the skull that shattered, but the cervical vertebrae that broke instantly. The headless skeleton soldier lost control of his body and stood motionless. The fallen skull still had a blue ghostly fire burning inside. This ghostly fire shouldn't be called ghost fire but soul fire, equivalent to the control center of the skeleton soldier. The other skeleton soldiers also noticed the anomaly here and charged over, wielding their bone knives. As for Xue-You, after kicking off a skeleton soldier's head, she landed steadily on the ground. Her actions were swift. She immediately stomped hard on the skull she had just kicked off. Crack! The pale skull was instantly crushed into bone fragments. Amidst the flying bone fragments, Xue-You remained expressionless after doing all this. The originally blue soul fire within the skull was exposed to the air when the skull shattered and quickly dissipated. At the same time, Yiling received a prompt from the system. Ding! Spirit Pet Xue-You successfully eliminated one skeleton soldier, 1/20th. This also meant that the skeleton soldier had been taken care of. Not only that, Yiling saw that on Xue-Yu's status panel, the experience value was no longer 0, but had changed to 0.5%. Although it wasn't much, it's worth noting that this was just the experience value provided by one skeleton soldier. And in this bone burial mound, there were many more skeleton soldiers. Without considering the task issue by the system, eliminating 200 skeleton soldiers would mean Xue-You could successfully level up once. That was much faster than other people's spirit pets leveling up. Add to that the system task, and it wouldn't even take 200 skeleton soldiers to level up once. Xue-Yu's leveling speed would far surpass other spirit pets. Thinking of the current situation, Yiling wanted to burst into laughter. However, considering his current location, Yiling held back so as not to attract too much attention from the skeleton soldiers. Those few skeleton soldiers that had surrounded Xue-You, wielding their bone knives, had directly encircled her and quickly launched an attack. Indeed, these skeleton soldiers had no intelligence. They only possessed the instinct to fight. Xue-You, eliminate them. Don't leave a single one. Yiling, standing at a high point, issued orders to Xue-You below. Xue-You, who received the order, took an attacking posture. On her two pale jade hands were very sharp nails, black in color, the standard color for zombie nails. Don't think that Xue-Yu's nails were just simple nails. They were equally very hard, equivalent to sharp weapons. Not only that, but Xue-Yu's nails also carry the unique zombie toxin. As long as they could successfully break the opponent's skin, the zombie toxin would invade the enemy's body. The zombie toxin spreading in the body would cause the opponent to die in agony, and it would always be very miserable, usually with black blood coming out of 7 orifices and the skin turning purplish-black. Even though this group of skeleton soldiers had barely reached level 2 or 3 of the First Order, they were still far too weak compared to Xue-You. Only higher-level skeleton warriors could pose a slight threat to Xue-You. Xue-Yu's speed was fast, unlike the slow-moving zombies people talk about. Bursts of afterimages flashed back and forth among the skeleton soldiers. In an instant, one skeleton soldier lost its skull, and the remaining white bone body collapsed to the ground. In no time at all these skeleton soldiers were lying down. Without exception, all had lost their skulls. When Xue-You reappeared before Yiling, she had several pale skulls in her hands. These skulls, naturally, came from those skeleton soldiers below. No need to keep them. Eliminate them all. Seeing Xue-You keeping the opponent's skulls, Yiling issued another order. Hearing this, Xue-You just nodded dumbly, and with one claw each, the skulls of several skeleton soldiers instantly turned into fragments in her hands. One by one, the blue soul fires gradually dissipated in the air.